Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Coach Cast with Jim Glogowski. I'm your host, Chad Birger. Today I'll be joined by co-host Sam Dooyema so we can discuss the Cougars' Week 10 matchup against Wayne State, and then we will talk about the Week 11 game at Southwest Minnesota State. To start off with, let's go ahead and take a look at the quick game recap from the Cougars' Week 10 matchup. It was held November 4th versus Wayne State at Bob Young Field. Wayne State prevailed 28-20 over the Cougars on the strength of a 21-3 first half lead. The Cougars came out in the second half and made things really interesting, but ultimately Wayne State prevailed 28-20, dropping the Cougars to 3-7 on the season, 3-6 in conference. Wayne has a 7-3 record overall. Next up, to take a look at the stats, we'll bring in Sam.
So looking at the stats from Saturday's game, USF, the offense really put some things together here with 432 total yards of offense to Wayne State's 310. 228 of those yards came through the air, and 204 yards on the ground to Wayne's 102 yards on the ground. There were some penalties. The Cougars were penalized 5 times for 55 yards to Wayne State's 2 for 15. But statistically, we're really able to outgain the Wildcats across the board. 24 first downs to Wayne State's 14. Went 50% on third down conversions, 6 for 12. And we're 0 for 1 on fourth downs. And the time of possession was able to hold on to the ball and control the clock for the most part, 36-30 for the Coup. And it was supposed to be 23-30 here for Wayne State. When we look at the individual statistics a little bit, Cam Dean having another solid day, 18 for 27 passing for 228 yards and a touchdown. He did have 1 interception, and he was able to carry the ball 15 times for 58 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground. Runnigan breaking the 100-yard mark on Saturday, 18 carries for 120 yards. Matt Grzybowski also toted the rock quite well, 12 carries for 55 yards. Adonis Hutchinson, 6 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown as well. Mark Leonard had 3 catches for 47 yards. Christian Janis, another freshman, had 3 catches and 1 rush. Nick Hernandez was 2 for 2 on field goals once again, making him 4 for 4 on the season. And unfortunately, the name of the game when we look at statistics on Saturday was turnovers, including 1 field goal not being attempted due to a botched snap, and then a fumble lost and an interception as well. And that's really what cost the coup statistics-wise.
Coach, I made Sam bring up some of the turnover stuff here. Sorry to bring that up right away. Let's do that and get that out of the way. Big fumble, big interception in the first half kind of led to that 21-3 deficit at halftime.
Yeah, we've talked about these things like it's a broken record a little bit. That, I thought Saturday we beat ourselves, to be honest with you. Even the long touchdown run, it's not just offense. We had him hemmed up. We had 3 or 4 guys miss a tackle, and he breaks it for a long run. 1 touchdown that they actually fumbled the snap, and we're late coming off the edge to blitz, and the guy gets open in the secondary, and it's a touchdown. So, some of those things, those mistakes, are certainly things that you want to avoid. But the turnovers are costly. The botched the botched field goal attempt. Just disappointing in that regard. But we're making a lot of progress, and that's a 7-3 football team that, from a statistics standpoint, I felt like we dominated them, to be honest. And the turnovers obviously are hidden stats that can kill you and not allow you to, really make any kind of big time plays. But, it's funny. Wayne State had 20 yards of offense this week, get outgained by 200 yards of offense this week, and yet they're 2-0. They had an interception return for a touchdown against Augie to win that game. They forced an interception. We were driving. They took a fumble away. And that's the story of their last 2 weeks, whereas our last 2 weeks, haven't been the same. So, I don't think it's rocket science to figure out. There's a lot of things that happen in a football game. Stats tell the story, but as I said to Tom and Tim after the game, the stats on the paper are about good enough to wipe your nose with it. So at the end of the day, you got to score more points, and they scored more points than we did.
Yeah, and those turnovers, both of them were in the first half were on kind of aggressive plays. The first one, Mark Leonard was trying to make a play, made a few guys miss earlier on. trying to go for a few extra yards, and someone popped it out right at the end. And then the interception on a screen pass that was coming into the middle, and just kind of an aggressive play call, and the great play by their defensive end on that one.
Yeah, we try to be aggressive and physical with our stuff, our style of play, running the football. That's what we want to be known as, a tough physical football team, and we got to play call it that way. You got to be aggressive, and so going for it back at Moorhead on 4th and 1 from our own 20, stuff like that. We want to be a program that's physical, aggressive, that is willing to take chances. And we talked about it as a staff yesterday. You got ball security, right? You obviously want to secure the football, and you want to make sure you're doing it in a smart way. For example, if it's 4th down and you're trying to score a touchdown, you got to put the ball over the pylon and risk possibly fumbling it. If it's 1st and goal, you don't want to put the ball over the pylon. You want to make sure that you don't turn it over and risk that, right? But late in the game, you got to score to win the game, and you got to do something to win the game. I want our kids to play free, and that's a big part of it. And, Mark, he was really working his tail off, and he made a mistake and fumbled it. He didn't mean to, and he'll learn from it. But, man, I don't want him to take a knee because he's worried about getting a fumble. That's the thing. And even with Cam, everyone blames the quarterback, but we missed a block up front. The guy came through too quickly. The tight end got out of his screen too fast, and it just created a big issue. And Cam should have just dirted it and got it over with. But, the reality of it is we're trying to make plays to win games, and that's going to happen sometimes. And, there's a lot of things that happen in the course of a football game, and we've also got to create more turnovers. We've got to punch the ball out on defense. So, turnover margin is a huge stat indicator, right? And it's not just offense and defense. And the margin, the plus or minus, is an area that we've got to get better at so that overall we're getting more than we're giving. And that's kind of the goal moving forward. But, yeah, I don't want our kids to play timid or run out of bounds because they're afraid they're going to fumble or get hit. I want our kids to play aggressive and free and fast. And if they make a mistake, nobody yelled at Mark. He felt bad enough. Nobody yelled at Cam. He felt bad enough. But, it's part of the game, and that we'll deal with it. And we're trying to create a culture and a mentality. And, sometimes you risk those things for trying to create that result.
Coach, it was senior day on Saturday. They introduced the 4 seniors prior to the game. You talked about those guys during the pregame show on the radio the other day, but it felt like during the game you really had some freshmen step up on senior day to really help those guys out. Adonis Hutchinson and Christian Janis, as we mentioned. And then defensively, you had a couple freshmen in there too. Do you want to talk about those guys at all in the game that they had?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't really study the stats that much after the game, but I love how you put the bullet points up. But, Adonis had 6 catches for 90 yards and a huge touchdown. That guy is a freshman. Christian Janis, who, had a tough fall there and had to go get checked out, and he's going to be okay. He'll be out for this week. His season's over with, but he's going to be okay. Man, that guy has grown right in front of our eyes. I remember the first time he caught a ball, he did go down. He was afraid to fight through contact. And then all of a sudden on Saturday, I see him sticking his foot in the ground and lowering his shoulder pads and running through people. And, man, that's exciting. And he's excited about the future. But he's only a freshman, right? Up front, I think we're forgetting about Caden Moss and Ryan Ziegelbauer. Those guys are actually freshmen. Jerome's a sophomore. Damavant's a sophomore. Ramaker's a sophomore, and those guys are really doing a nice job. Our quarterback's a sophomore. He's not a redshirt sophomore. He's a true sophomore. So that was really exciting. On defense, Dawson Rabe, again, a 6'1", 305-pound D tackle who, those guys are, like I said before, like dinosaurs. And we've got a really good one there. He's going to be a really good player for us. But Mo Diawara, a redshirt freshman, number 33. He's a 6'5", 265-pound. He only played. This is his 3rd year of playing football. Right? He played 1 year in high school. He redshirted last year, and now he's a redshirt freshman. And that guy can rush the passer. Alex Maxim is a redshirt freshman. That's exciting. Preston Yankee is a sophomore, defensive tackle. I thought Chase Kelly did a nice job. He's a redshirt freshman. So that's exciting. Out at safety, Cade Moore started and played a phenomenal game as a true freshman at safety. Last week was his first game action, and then he started this week. We're using that 3-game rule. He was very impressive. You could just see his tempo and his attitude and how he attacked the football. Like, he gets it. He puts his head on the right side when he goes to tackle, so he understands that. Along with him, London Cole started at nickel. That was his first college start. True freshman out of Sioux Falls Jefferson. But these guys are coming from programs like Pierce, Nebraska, and Sioux Falls Jefferson, and places like that understand how to play the game and have been coached at a high level and have been successful in high school. And they bring that mentality, that attitude. Garrett Hoffman, redshirt freshman, number 20. He's played all year long as a freshman. Then right in the middle, Matt Gehring, I've talked about him before, a redshirt freshman. Charlie Quaintance is a true freshman that saw about 15, 20 reps on defense on Saturday out of Millard North, Nebraska, another really good program. True freshman playing well on special teams last week, got his action on defense this week, So as I look at these guys, and there's several other, not that I'm trying to forget anybody, but the excitement is that those guys have a lot ahead of them. The downside is there's 4 seniors, and really 2 of them saw playing time on Saturday. And as a byproduct of that, your experience level and your ability to overcome things and to handle adversity, typically the older guys help do that better. And when I look down there for senior day, I've only been around those guys for a few months. 3 of those 4 gentlemen joined us in August, right? They weren't even here in the spring. Tyrese was the only person on that senior group that was here in the spring going through drills. But again, he's coming off a tough Achilles injury. Chuck Rutledge is a guy that's been banged up and hasn't played a lot for us this year. We thought he would come in and be a factor, and it just hasn't happened. And then Darf at wide receiver, number 13, Darf going, he's done some nice things, helped us out, kind of stabilized that receiving core. He's been healthy and playing. And then, Amari. Amari's the one guy who played here for 5 years, wasn't here in the spring, thought he was going to go in the transfer portal. Things didn't work out, kind of last minute, came back to us in the summer, and we were really appreciative of his efforts. And, for him, he was pretty emotional in pregame, wearing number 44 because his jersey number 95 got ripped off in the last game against Augie, which, I don't know how you get a jersey ripped off unless somebody's grabbing it. But whatever, we can talk about that some other time after the season. I know Aaron Lynn, the commissioner, listens to this to get inside scoop, so I don't want to get fined. But at the end of the day, just really proud of those effort and attitude. And I don't know. I wish we had. I said it after the radio on the post game. I wish we had 10 more games. I'm ready to keep going. I don't think our kids are, but I feel like we're starting to really turn the corner, especially the second half on Saturday.
Well, Coach, any final thoughts you want to talk about here relating to the game against Wayne?
No, I just was walking out last night, going home, and I saw the Coup Legacy football trailer sitting out there all lonely in the parking lot with a couple of trash cans blown over next to it. And I will say this about Wayne State's fans. They're extremely classy. They had bagged up all their garbage and left it underneath the light pole, so shout out to them. Appreciate those guys. They're a sporting group. Logan Mashers and Colin Prosser did a nice job, and all those guys. And I respect their program, and they played hard. It was a good football game. We just came up short. We're excited about getting after it again this week one more time.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned this week, last game of the regular season, play against Southwest Minnesota State, the Mustangs, Saturday, November 11th. It's in Marshall, Minnesota, which isn't too far of a road trip, so we expect all the Cougar fans to travel really well and head up to Marshall. One of the things I will mention, it's at Matt Key Field at the Schwann Regional Event Center. On the visitors' side, there's not a lot of bleacher seating. So what I've done in the past, and you all can do this too, bring your foldable lawn chair, right? Throw it in the trunk of your car, throw it over your shoulder when you're coming into the game. They've got plenty of seating along the little berm on top of behind the visitors bench area. You got a great view. You don't have to, huddle in next to other people. You can, have your little beverage holder in your chair and everything. It's a good little setup over there. I really enjoy that. Kickoff scheduled for 12 o'clock. You can watch on the NSIC network, or you can listen on KWSN. 11:30 pregame. Tom and Tim will be there. I'm going to be there. I just don't know if I'm going to be on air due to technical limitations. But you can listen to that on 98.1 FM, 12:30 a.m., or at kwsn.com. So, Coach, Southwest Minnesota State, they have a 1-9 record on the season. They beat Minot State the opening week of the season, and since then they've kind of had a rough go at it. They lost to Bemidji State, Wayne State, Duluth, Valpo, Augie, Northern State, Moorhead, Mankato, and Mary. You can see some of those scores were a little bit lopsided near the beginning of the season, and they've gotten a little bit, closer towards the end of the season. What do we expect to see this week out of the Stangs?
Well, they're a veteran group. They've got several seniors. They've got great size up front. I think they've struggled to kind of capitalize on some stuff. And, they're in a little bit of a transition as well. Coach Underwood's a really good coach, longtime head coach at St. Cloud. He's been there now. This is his second season. and Doug Patterson, the offensive coordinator. Again, a couple more guys that I know really well, and they're good people and good coaches, and they're just trying to find their way like we are. And so I think both teams are looking to go out with a bang. Obviously, this is a springboard into the offseason. Certainly in the future, we don't want to sit here in week 11 and talking about the next season and springboarding, but that's where we're at right now. And our kids, we're practicing on a Monday this week, which is different because the NCAA is a mandatory civic engagement voters day on Tuesday. So our normal Tuesday practice is bumped up. So we got a little different schedule. I talked to the kids at length on Sunday about kind of what this week looks like, what it means. At the end of the day, there's 4 guys that are taking their pads off forever, right? And we obviously want those guys to be engaged and play hard. And if they get an opportunity to make an impact. But more importantly, we're trying to get better all the time. It doesn't matter if it's a game on Saturday, if it's a max out session in January in the weight room, if it's a testing session of 40-yard dashes in March. Every opportunity you get to be a better player, you take advantage of it. And the best way to be better at football, as Coach Hoffner used to say at Mankato, is to play football. And we have an opportunity to get better. And I told the guys, it's kind of like the NFL. If you're on a 3-13 team in the NFL, that last week matters to you because you're trying to secure a contract and all that. You're trying to impress somebody. Hey, man, dress to impress. Go out there and impress somebody. Play hard. It's a game. You only get so many. We get 11 guaranteed opportunities. This is number 11. It's going to be a long time before you get to play the game of football again, right? Almost 9 months till we play again against an outside opponent. So let's go out and let's enjoy it. Let's practice our tails off. Because championship programs and championship teams practice and play like champions all the time, not just when there's something at stake. And that's what we're creating here. And I think you saw that on Saturday. You saw the effort and the energy of our guys, especially I think on defense. Our kids flew around and played really hard. So that's really encouraging, And so, Rome wasn't built in a day, and I get that, and we want to be better. And this is a game that we're going to go out and compete just like we have the last few weeks and see what happens. But I feel good about where we're at. I feel good about our young guys in the development, and I'm excited to get another opportunity to go out and coach these guys.
Coach, you mentioned Scott Underwood. He actually was a USF assistant coach from 1993 to 96. Before that, he was at another school at Augustana, I think it's called. Yeah, but then he did spend 12 seasons as the head coach of St. Cloud State before they foolishly dropped their football program. They've struggled. The Mustangs have struggled a little bit on the season. Offensively, that they've got a decent attack here, 922 yards rushing, and over 2,000 yards passing, but they're allowing a little bit more than that. And you can kind of see I put their quarterback up here. He's completing about 57% of his passes, but it's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns. But he does have a pretty potent receiving core. Osman, Lyra, and Palmer, they're kind of a little bit dangerous when they get the ball. They've, accounted for about 60% of the productivity up there. And then Donald Austin got a little bit of action last year behind Jesse Sherwood, and he's really been kind of their main load carrier so far this season, 810 yards rushing on the season. Any other things that you've noticed about the Mustangs?
Yeah, I think the Austin kid runs really hard. He's a physical, tough back. He's a 6 foot, 225-pound kid, runs really hard. The quarterback's mobile. He'll get out of the pocket. They do some things with him running and throwing, kind of like we do, kind of very much a Cam Dean type of player. And their receivers they're bigger and they're physical, and they're not real complicated as far as the different personnel packages they get into. They've got a really good plan and they try to execute it, and I can respect that. You do things your kids can do and try to be really good at it. And so, we're going to have to be ready to go. We can't mail it in. I don't think our kids will. We want to go out there and try to just, again, gain some momentum for the offseason, send our seniors out for their last college football game in a positive, and then hopefully continue to see our kids grow and develop and mature. And, that's just it. I'm just excited to get going. And, I enjoy this. This is the best part of the season. Recruiting's fine. I do it. I enjoy that too. But spring ball is awesome because there's no game. It's just coaching and teaching. But really, outside of the season and spring ball, that's why I wanted to be a coach, right? I love the sport. I love to coach it and teach it. Hopefully, our kids are here because they love playing football. And, there's never a bad day when you're playing football. You mentioned it's a short drive. It's a really nice stadium up there. It's going to be a decent day, I think, for November 11th, which is awesome. We'd like to have a great crowd. And, our players are excited to go out and put it on one more time. And, 365 days, Saturday is the 365th day of this football team's life. And on Sunday, when the kids come in, we say goodbye to the seniors, and 2024 starts up brand new. So that's the one thing about this kind of thing. The endings are never easy. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Understandably, you want more wins, but this is the end of this life cycle of this football team. The 2023 team will never be the same. It'll never be together again. And in that regard itself, it's a big deal. And there's a lot of hard times, a lot of tough sweat, blood, tears that have gone into this season. And let's go out and finish it the right way. And, you know, the best we can do is 4-7. Let's be 4-7.
Sam is our Southwest Minnesota guy. Sam, do you have any questions about SMSU you want to ask Coach Glo?
No, I'm looking forward to the game. I think, as the resident Southwest Minnesota native here, it's a great little stadium. I got to play a couple section championships there. It's a good place to watch a game. I got into that NSIC record. I don't know if it still holds, shootout we had back in 2013 when it felt like Washington and USC on Saturday. We had our own version of that with Coach Grubb as our OC and Luke Papillion going back and forth there. So it's a great place to catch a game. And yeah, I think Underwood's building something there, and I think they're just as they continue to grow their resources there. But I'm excited to see what you guys can do. And I think it's been a good spot, and it's a fun little rivalry. I think it's grown across sports and basketball as well, just because of the proximity of the two schools. And I think both these schools harbor a little bit of blue chip on the shoulder mentality in their respective cities and states. And I think it's fun to see. And I think there's a good mutual respect between the fan bases and the program. So it's good to see from the coaching perspective as well.
Absolutely. The border battle. Should get some trophy going. Mustang
happen.
Ponies and the cats. I don't know, something.
I'll see if I can dream something up, and I don't know. I feel like maybe that ship has sailed. We should have done that years ago. But that would have been
more importantly, how do in 2023, Chad, how do we have a problem with technical difficulties that we can't get you a mic on the sideline? What is going on in this world? You're telling me that there's not a microphone at Radio Shack? They still have Radio Shacks or somewhere out there where
you're dating yourself there, Coach.
I mean, there's still a transistor radio out there that Tom had or whatever. How would we not, or an 8-man Walkman or whatever? How can we not get you a tin can and a string piped into their stream?
We're going to see what we can do on Saturday. We'll try everything that we can to get it up and working, but it really is dependent on the audio into my ear. It's not so much the microphone. The microphone works, but it's kind of awkward when Tom and Tim call down to me and there's a 30-second lag. You don't want to have 30 seconds of dead air out there. So I did at one point on Saturday, I did think about coming up to you and asking, hey, Coach, Taco John's update here, and seeing if you wanted to do a quick in-game interview. But I was like, I don't know.
Are we going to do halftime interviews? That's really big time next level. When are you going to get me going off the field at halftime?
I think we'll have to work that in next season. We can maybe work on something like that. I'll talk to Tom and Tim and see what we think.
It's a work in progress here too, Coach. Like we're growing as well. We're also in our first year. You got to get us here.
Oh, okay.
There's some growth here as well. And I'm warning you now, and if Tom's listening, he's going to complain about the proximity of the press box at Mackey Field. It's way down on the end. So if you come up for your interview, just be warned. This is one of Tom's biggest pet peeves. I've heard about it for years. So just be warned. He doesn't like where he's placed in the press box.
We all have room to grow. But, yeah. I mean, it's 2020, going to be 2024, Chad. If we can't get a sideline reporter with a mic doing a halftime interview with the Glow Man, this show's not going to take it to the next level.
Well, I don't even know how many other schools out there have a sideline reporter to start off with. So I think we're above the other NSIC schools in that regard.
But Chad, what are we trying to be Pitt State here? Or are we trying to be like Minot Jr.? What are we doing here?
I was about to call him out. I said, that sounds like an excuse, Chad. We're going to find a way in the offseason. We're going to make this happen.
What are we talking about? I guess we're only limited. Like I say, you're either coach it that way or allow it to happen. So I don't know what to say. I need to talk to the president of KWSN or something and get him on the horn, and we'll get something figured out.
Yeah, we'll work on it this offseason. I like the idea. Well, Coach, looking forward to the game this weekend. As you mentioned, the weather forecast looks very favorable so far, about 50 degrees, in November. Goodness gracious, we couldn't have asked for better weather, between last Saturday and this coming week.
Yep.
We've had so many years where it's been snow or cold or windy or rainy. So just the fact that you have this beautiful weather, get to finish off your football season. It's going to be a great one on Saturday. Looking forward to it.
Hey, 10:30, leave the house. Sioux Falls, you're home by 4:30, catch the late afternoon game, spend a beautiful day in the Schwann's Event Center, get some ice cream maybe on the way home. Just a little Schwann's ice cream on the way home and call it good, man.
Get some chicken strips and
there you go.
That.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the mailbag next, Coach.
Throw it at me.
I had several people stop me on Saturday, and they all were like, hey, man, love the Q Coach Cast. You guys do an awesome job. One of the people who stopped me was John from Mitchell. John wanted to talk technique. And so he was like, hey, man, I want to know, when Coach Glow talks with those defensive backs, it seems like in all levels of football, I'm seeing cornerbacks who aren't necessarily covering that fade route the same way that we did back in, I'm not going to throw John under the bus, but it was back in the early 80s. He was kind of describing the technique that they do. But how do you guys teach technique for a cornerback covering like a fade pattern?
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting question because we've struggled with that, obviously. And I think the technique is the issue. Because if you take these guys' testing times, right, their 40-yard dash, their vertical and all that, they're very similar to some of the guys I've had in the past. But I think the guys that we have kind of like teaching an old dog new tricks mentality. They would chart a certain way, which is nothing wrong with that way. But the way that we played our scheme, those guys need to be more disruptors than cover guys. So when they're covering man-to-man, I want them to move laterally and force the wide receiver to bow outside. What we're doing right now is we're opening up and we're punching and we're running. So there's your tribute to John Madden on-screen display there. But what we got to do is get our feet going to get lateral as the receiver's pressing vertical. And then as we press lateral, the receiver widens out. And as he widens out, we can delay the timing, throw the timing off, especially down in the red zone on fade balls. Because if it's just a race to the corner of the pylon, the quarterback's making a spot throw. And as you're going to see, 9 times out of 10, he's going to catch it, or there's going to be a penalty on us. So trying to throw the timing off in man is the biggest thing. Because generally, if you're bringing man coverage, you're probably blitzing, so the quarterback has less time to throw. So that's what we got to get better at. And right now, we're working on it. It's been a kind of an Achilles heel for us a little bit. I thought Saturday we were better with the pressure. We want our guys to be physical and aggressive and not worried about PIs, pass interferences. They're going to get called, but we can't play defense scared to make a play. And so that's kind of where we're at with it right now. And I know we put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's something we're going to focus on in the off season, but we just got to get better at our technique. And so I'm not sure. Some people teach a pedal and a weave where they kind of weave back and forth, but we want to make sure we get lateral, force routes to bubble, kind of like an hourglass, if you will. We want to make that hourglass effect where the guy's got to move off the line and he's got to work to get vertical, not just take it off and make it in a foot race.
I love that answer, Coach. I love the technical stuff. So Sam wants to ask you another kind of technical question.
Yeah, I was going to say, always coaching, even when he's doing media interviews with guys like us. So we appreciate it.
Well, here's the thing, and this is probably schematically where I'm at defensively or how I am. The older I get, and I've spent so much time at lower levels where you don't have the resources and the budget, you have to have a system that can be consistent to all things. And my big thing is, you don't necessarily always have to stop a play to be successful. You have to minimize the gain. So let's say, for example, we're playing 3 deep, 3 safeties in a corner going deep, right? If they throw a ball 5 yards in a hitch route, I cannot stop that if I'm playing 3 deep coverage behind it. You don't have enough guys to put them all over the field. But what we can do is teach the corner every single time to attack downhill, put his head on the sideline side of the receiver, and minimize the gain. And so really, I don't care about stats because I'm worried about minimizing the gain. And if teams do not have explosive plays, which I consider over 25 yards, it's proven that 0 to 2 explosive plays will keep most opponents under 10 points. Make them earn it, right? And they're on scholarship too. They've got good players too. They practice too. But ultimately, the devil's in the details. Can you do it over and over and over again without making a mistake? And that's, if you've seen us offensively, we've dominated time of possession. We have the football. We're getting tons of plays. I think we ran, again, almost 2-to-1 total plays. But the downside of not having explosive plays, yes, their offense is off the field, but you're also making yourself work harder and longer to score, which creates more opportunities to make mistakes. And so that's kind of the dichotomy that we struggle with a little bit. You want to dominate time of possession, you want to be physical, but you got to have some explosive plays every now and then because that's what breaks the back of a defense.
Yeah, it was 74-46 here this past week. So
I mean, I've never seen things like that stat-wise. But again, those are things that speak to the future. You can be negative, but I say, man, look what we're capable of doing offensively. If we played defensively all year long like we did on Saturday, we probably have maybe 1 or 2 more wins. But you can't just do that. It takes time to figure it out. And so now the key is, if we've taught it the right way on the foundational level, it should pay off in the future.
So, Coach, that goes into our next question here. I got a chance to watch the game with some of my fellow members of the Cougar Football Legacy Association, and we were talking, and Alex, I think, asked the official question for the mailbag. Your defense has played better as of late, and you talked about it last week after Pitt State about simplifying things. You're starting to get into the details. What's some of the reasons for that? Are these guys just figuring it out, or are there some other things going on too that really have got you, your defense really flying around and really changing things around?
Well, I think part of it is we have really good kids. They really care. They work at it. You know, a lot of teams, like I said it several times, would have just shut it down and, oh, we're 3-6. What's the point? Let's just get this over with. I think our kids are hungry. And it's like any good meal. You want to have just enough that you're full, but you still want more, right? And that's kind of where we're at right now. We have a lot of young guys playing. That's creating an energy level that we haven't had. And quite frankly, you know, the experience level is higher. And, you know, I've been involved from the get-go on the defense, and so that's nothing new. But this week we tried a little bit of a change up and had a little bit of a different set of eyes in the press box. And, you know, we're trying to address some of the in-game mistakes versus watching the film afterwards. But we tried to do that early in the season too. People say, why didn't you do it earlier? Well, we did, but we were speaking a different language at the beginning of the season to these guys. I mean, if you remember the Mankato game, they had a great day rushing the ball. There was a couple plays we weren't even lined up right. And it's painful as a coach to watch that, because I'm so used to, you know, to having guys lined up right. And it's funny, I watched the tape of Mankato, and they're running the same defense for the most part. And I see the veteran guys on Mankato's defense doing this stuff right. I see the younger guys or the transfer guys at Mankato that are struggling with the same things that we struggle with here, whereas defensive linemen aren't in the gap. The problem is that they've got, or the difference is they've got some older guys executing at a high level that offset some of the mistakes they're making. For us, it's been a group effort growing in together, and I just think you see the benefit of that. The other thing is I think we blitzed a lot more on Saturday. I kind of got to the point where I was like, you know what, let's force the issue with these guys. Had a really good handle on Wayne State. You know, I played them twice last year. I was with Colin Prosser for 5 years at Mankato, so that helps, having a pretty good handle on them and their personnel. And so forcing the issue and saying, you know what, if you're going to beat us, you know, you're going to have to beat us, you know, doing it the way we want to go down. And I wanted to force it. We blitzed the run game stuff. We had some TFLs. The biggest thing I think you saw on Saturday is we got them behind the chains. So in other words, it was 2nd and 13 instead of 2nd and 6. That changes everything. And field position. I think we had them pinned down on their side of the field. They weren't constantly starting on our side of the field. So there's so many things that goes into it. Yes, it's as simple as saying, oh, this guy did this and he did that. That's why it's different. True. But there's a lot of those situations. And when they all kind of coincide together, that makes for a good defensive performance. I also think that our offense moving the ball helped. You know, it kept us off the field. We wore them down. You know, if we don't turn the ball over, we probably win that game by 2 touchdowns, quite frankly, you know, and but we didn't. We should have stopped them at the end. It's our fault. We should have shut them out in the second half. But that's the first time all year we've had multiple 3-and-outs in the second half to get ourselves back in the game, and you got to play complementary football.
Coach, we'll lighten things up a little bit here.
That's heavy, man. I can take anything. That's nothing.
Yeah. This guy, Chad from T, he's a longtime guest of our show, a frequent listener of our show, we'll say.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah. He wants to know, you know, as you near the end of the season, you're kind of in a routine during the season where, you know, you kind of do the same things every day. Of course, you mentioned today that the NCAA is throwing a little bit of wrench in that this week with the voting day thing. But how does that change your routine and your diet as the season ends and you go into the off season?
Well, hopefully I stop going to McDonald's and Slim Chickens, because I never pack a lunch, and I'm up here on the south side of town, and it's just so easy to go to the McDonald's right down the road, or to go to, you know, Jimmy John's, or I really am a sucker for the chai, the high chai buffet, the Chinese buffet at Hy-Vee. That's delicious. So I'm hoping I can be more disciplined. I'd like to get back on the treadmill, kind of a New Year's resolution before New Year's. You know, I make all the excuses in the world about why I can't get on the treadmill. Also, we are very fortunate, thank you to the Cougar Football Legacy, that provides a meal after our home games. Love it, but fortunately that's over with, so I no longer will have to eat the leftovers in the nutrition center. Which is a positive. So, yeah, were you talking about me or the players? I guess
you, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I feel like maybe.
People want to know how things change for you here, Coach.
Oh, I think, are you trying to say that the glow man's gotten a little heavier as the seasons? I think the camera adds a little. See, I go back, I look thinner, I get closer, I look bigger. I don't know.
Coach, I'm not trying to put any inferences or any type of innuendo into this.
Well, I didn't say you. We're talking about Chad from T.
Yeah, Chad from T. Yep. He just wants to know about your routine. So I've heard of other coaches that essentially they'll go out on the recruiting trail and the only thing they ever eat is Subway or Dairy Queen.
Oh, yeah.
That's all there is. So,
well, unfortunately, I am a Pepsi Zero guy. I am teriyaki, Jack Link's jerky, and my wife says I got to cut down on the sodium, so I try to stay away from the seeds. So then I just get a bag of peanut M&Ms. I'm not sure that's a better alternative, but I always have to have something when I'm driving. And then I'm a sucker for a 32-ounce soda fountain for 99 cents. And if it's breakfast, I'm Casey's Pizza. If I'm in Iowa, it's Casey Pizza all the time, Casey Breakfast Pizza. Again,
your topping of choice, Coach.
Not the model of health, but.
Are you a bacon or sausage guy?
Oh, bacon. Yeah, the sausages sometimes, depending on the Casey's, it can be spicy. I'm not a big spicy sausage guy. Gives me heartburn. But I'll go crushed bacon anytime. The cheese sauce is too much cheese sauce, though, and then you get a floppy pizza. You don't want a floppy slice of pizza. You want a little firmness so you don't drop it on your pants.
Coach, I've got a roast in the crock pot right now. You talked earlier this season about how this is a crock pot versus a microwave, an instant thing. Is this one of those things where how do you make sure that going into the off season here, you keep your food, ready to rock and roll in that crock pot and ready to go and building up so that it's ready to go at the right time.
So is this a question from you or is this a follow-up from Chad from T?
We'll say this is from Chad from T.
Southwest Sam. Is this Southwest Sam? No. Yeah. I think the biggest thing is, you got to look at your major holidays coming up, right? So, in our house, Thanksgiving's a big deal. I got all my kids coming, families coming to Sioux Falls this year. So, my mom and my grandma, they were Italian background, so we had a rice stuffing. Unfortunately, no one's alive anymore to make it, so we probably won't have the rice stuffing. So that's kind of a bummer. But I'm a big sweet potato guy. I think you have to have two types of potatoes, mashed and sweet. And then I think it's critical that you have a couple different vegetables, green beans and corn, because there's nothing better than leftovers when you sprinkle some corn on top of the mashed potatoes. So that's number one. Number two, you got Christmas. We're a big ham family at Christmas time. Not a real big ham guy myself personally. My mother-in-law has oyster stew, which since I married my wife, the only time I had oyster stew is when we were engaged because I wanted her dad to like me. But to this day, I spit out the oysters and just sip the stew. And now anymore, I don't even eat the stew because I can't stand it. And I've told my mother-in-law for 25 years. So we got that on the docket. They're Norwegian, so you got some lefse. That's critical at Christmas time. The thin, I don't know what it is, thin little pastry stuff that you put some butter on it. Again, my wife's side of things, I would just as soon have, some kind of, I don't know, roast beef or some type of prime rib. That's kind of what my go-to is. And then the thing is in between, it depends on how much you make some leftovers because you got to have some solid leftovers before and after for the bowl games, right? And then ultimately, I think you got to hit the wings on New Year's Eve. The big games, that's my thing. So, as far as non-recruiting wise, that's what I would go with. And then in recruiting wise, you can pretty much justify anything you want because you're on the road and you're sacrificing away from your family. So the only way to make yourself feel better is to have the kind of foods that you really like. Is that fair?
I love it, Coach. I like the insight there. That was awesome.
You agreed to do the show with two former offensive linemen, and so I mean, it seems only fitting that this would be how our discussion would go. So I'm all candies.
We covered Halloween candies. We've covered on the road meals. I will say, shout out. I thought that last week's road trip was probably the best overall as far as meals and whatnot. That's always kind of dicey. You never know what you're going to get. Some places it's just red sauce that sounds like, it's like watered down ketchup. And sometimes you get a couple different options. But it was crazy.
That might be a mailbag question. I'm thinking back to some former meals now, and I'm like, oh, okay, and this could be good. So
the guy that was working the buffet last week in Pitt State down there, when we were down there, his name was Mishul, and he was from India. He was a graduate of an Indian university for travel and leisure, and they had posted him at different Marriotts across the country here in the U.S. to learn how it is here. So my man showed up after graduating from college. He lives in the hotel at the Marriott in Kansas City. And he will be there for 1 year. He's left the hotel one time to go to Walmart. So we're sitting there in our post-game, meal and our pregame meal, and we have snacks for the guys, some Gatorades and some treats. And so we have Rice Krispie bars this week. I go, hey, Shul, have you ever had a Rice Krispie treat? My man has never had a Rice Krispie treat or a Twinkie. He was blown away by the crunchy, tasty delightfulness of a Rice Krispie treat. And then the smoothness of the sponge factor of the Twinkie. He was beside himself. So he's like, oh, thank you, thank you. He goes back into his backpack and brings out some Indian dessert and gave it to me to take with. So I traded a Twinkie and a Rice Krispie treat from an Indian dessert that's kind of like lefse, but a thicker lefse with not a whole lot of taste, kind of a doughy texture. But it was from his mother who had shipped it to him from India. How cool is that? Who says football doesn't bring us together?
It's America right there. I love it.
It's America.
Yeah.
So if Michelle, you're out there listening to the Cool Cast, cool things are going well. 1 year, in next September of 24, he goes back to India with this experience of traveling around the U.S., learning how U.S. hotel operations work. He was pretty stoked because on Saturday morning, he was going to get a turn at the Starbucks barista. He was going to learn how to be a barista. It's amazing.
It's really interesting, all the people that you meet throughout football, the football season. It's been a great season so far. I know through this show, I have had so many people come up to me at home games and just say, hey, Chad, love the show. Ask Coach Glow this, ask Coach Glow that. So it's really an awesome experience and had a great time so far this season doing the show. Looking forward to hopefully doing a season recap at the end of the season. But
come on.
Yep. But let's go ahead and wrap this show up right now. Make sure before I wrap it up, though, make sure if you're around Saturday, support the Cougars, right? Either head over to Marshall and check out the game or tune in on KWSN or the NSIC network and support the Cougars. Make sure you watch what is being built right now. It's kind of really been impressive the last few weeks here.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up by talking about the Cougar Football Legacy Association. As Coach Glow mentioned earlier, the Cougar Football Legacy Association's mission is to bring alumni, family, friends, and supporters together to help equip the USF football program with the resources necessary to continue its winning legacy. For more information on the Cougar Football Legacy Association, if you want to join or just check out the events that they have, you can go to cougarlegacy.com and check out that information. Thanks so much to Coach Glow for all of his insights today, as well as Sam Dooyema for co-hosting. Until next time, stay safe and go Cougars.